You're listening to Daily Prayer Stories, Cinematic Journeys of Faith, where everyday struggles meet eternal hope. Daily Prayer Stories presents Season 5, The Story of Hannah. Part 8, The Afterlight. After every storm comes a quiet test, not of faith lost, but of how you live when the light returns. 3 days after the storm, the town still smelled like rain and power lines. The air hummed with generators, and the sound of chainsaws echoed through the distance, neighbors cutting away fallen branches, rebuilding fences, patching roofs. The Brooks farmhouse stood firm, but scarred, the roof missing shingles. A window cracked. The garden half-dash flooded. Hannah stood in the doorway with hope on her hip, taking in the aftermath. The morning light stretched across puddles, turning them into small mirrors. Everything was broken and shiny at once. Looks like we got hit harder than most, Mark said, stepping beside her. Hammer in hand. Yeah, Hannah replied softly. But we're still standing. That's something. He kissed her temple. That's grace. All that day, they worked. Mark replaced panels on the shed. Hannah salvaged what she could from the garden. Bruised tomatoes, flattened herbs, roots pulled half up but still alive. Hope sat in her stroller under the porch, babbling at every bird that passed. By late afternoon, sweat streaked their faces, and the sun burned low in the west. Mark leaned against the fence post and smiled faintly. You remember when we thought this place would never be home? Hannah nodded. I remember when we thought we'd never have a family to fill it. He grinned. Guess God likes surprising slow learners. She laughed, shaking her head. Yeah, but he sure knows how to make a point. That evening, as dusk fell, Pastor Jim and his wife stopped by with a basket of food and 2 thermoses of coffee. We heard you took some damage, Pastor Jim said, glancing up at the missing shingles. Mark nodded. More than we planned for, less than we deserved. The pastor chuckled. Sounds like Grace talking. They sat together on the porch, sipping coffee while the cicadas sang. Hope slept in her bassinet, one small hand curled tight around her blanket. Hannah turned to the pastor. You ever think about why storms hit some houses harder than others? He thought for a moment. Maybe because God knows which ones will still be standing afterward, and who'll help rebuild the rest. The words sank deep. Hannah smiled faintly. Then, I guess I'd better keep some nails handy. That night after they left, Hannah lingered on the porch. The moon was bright, the field silver and quiet. A single firefly drifted by, blinking like a pulse against the dark. She opened her Bible and read aloud, her voice barely above a whisper. For thou hast been a shelter for me, and a strong tower from the enemy. I will abide in thy tabernacle forever. I will trust in the covert of thy wings. Psalm chapter 61, verses 3 and 4, King James Version. She looked toward the oak tree stump, the one split by lightning, and smiled. A new sprout had already pushed through the bark, a thin, bright green promise of life. You waste nothing, do you? She whispered inside. The house was dim but peaceful. Hope stirred once, sighed, and went still again. Hannah traced her daughter's cheek with a fingertip. You'll grow up and not remember any of this, she said softly. But maybe that's what grace does. It lets the next generation start clean. Mark came in behind her, wrapping his arms around her shoulders. You're thinking too loud again, he teased. She leaned against him. Just realizing how much I used to pray for quiet days. Now, I know. Peace doesn't mean nothing happens. It means you're not afraid when it does. He kissed her hair. That's the sermon right there. She smiled. Maybe. Or maybe it's just a mother learning to trust the silence. The next morning, the power flickered back on. The fridge hummed. The house lights blinked to life. Hope squealed at the sudden glow, clapping her tiny hands. Hannah laughed, tears welling up unexpectedly. It was such a small thing. Electricity. But it felt like resurrection. Like proof that the world keeps turning. She looked at Mark. You hear that? He raised an eyebrow. The hum? No, she said, smiling through tears. That's the sound of life moving on. That evening, As the sunset bled gold across the fields, Hannah wrote in her journal for the first time in weeks. The storm came. It scared us, stripped us, tested us. But it didn't break us. God was louder than the wind. And now, even in the quiet, I can still hear him. She closed the book and whispered, "Thank you, Lord, for the kind of peace that outlives the storm." Part 9. The Calling. Some prayers change your life. Others change what your life is for. A week after the storm, the world looked normal again, or close enough to pretend. The fences were mended. The roof was patched. Hope was back to her early morning giggles. The hum of life had returned to the Brooks farmhouse. But Hannah's heart had shifted. Something inside her refused to settle back into routine. It started one morning while she was folding laundry. She found an old onesie in the back of the drawer, the one she'd bought years before Hope was born, when doctors said there was still a chance. Tiny yellow ducks, the tag still crisp. She remembered holding it back then and praying, "Lord, I'll wait as long as it takes." Now, holding it again, she whispered something different. "Lord, what do you want me to do with what you gave?" That afternoon, she drove into town with Hope in the back seat. The radio played softly, an old hymn she hadn't heard since her mother's funeral. The words felt new now. "Great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see." She parked outside the community center, the same place where Pastor Jim's wife, Clara, ran a support group for mothers who'd lost children. Hannah had donated baby blankets there years ago, before she even knew she'd become a mother herself. When she walked in, Clara looked up from a stack of donation forms. "Well, look who it is," she said, smiling. "If it isn't the miracle mama." Hannah blushed. "Please don't call me that." Clara set the papers aside. "You came at the right time. We just started a new outreach for women waiting on adoption approvals, IVF results, or healing. It's hard work." Hannah shifted Hope to her other hip. "Sounds familiar." Clara nodded, eyes soft. "I was hoping you'd say that." That evening, Hannah helped organize a table of donated clothes. She folded tiny socks, sorted bottles, checked expiration dates on formula cans. The smell of baby powder mixed with dust and coffee. Around her, women shared stories, some full of laughter, others threaded with tears. One woman said quietly, "I keep praying, but I feel like I'm talking to a wall." Another replied, "Sometimes the wall is just God's chest. You don't know it until he breathes." Hannah froze. Those words hit deep. That had been her once, whispering prayers to what felt like concrete silence. She turned, smiled, and said softly, "I used to feel that too." The women looked at her. She hesitated, then spoke. "I waited 8 years. We lost 2 babies. I stopped believing God was listening. Then one day he reminded me he hadn't moved. I had. The day I let go of what I expected, he gave me something I didn't even know how to ask for." The room was quiet. Someone sniffled. Hope giggled from her carrier. Perfect, unplanned timing got Hannah laughed through tears. "And now I get to tell you, he still hears, even when all you can do is breathe." After the meeting, Clara caught her by the door. "You ever think about leading one of these sessions?" Hannah blinked. "Me?" "Yeah, you," Clara said. "You've got that look. Someone who's been through the fire and came out carrying water for the next person." Hannah smiled shyly. "I'll pray about it." Clara grinned. That's what I was counting on. That night, back home, Hannah sat on the porch again. The air smelled of hay and faint rain. Hope was asleep. Mark was reading inside. The field stretched out before her, wide, calm, endless. She thought about the storm, about loss, about how God had built a ministry out of her waiting. She opened her Bible, flipping to a verse she'd underlined years ago, but never understood until now. "Comfort those who are in any trouble, with the comfort wherewith we ourselves are comforted, God." 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 4, King James Version. She whispered, "You never wasted any of it, did you?" And for the first time in her life, the silence didn't scare her. It felt holy, like a pause before a purpose. The next morning, Hannah woke before dawn. She poured coffee, sat by the window, and wrote in her journal, "Lord, I think I know what you're asking. You didn't just heal me to make me happy. You healed me to make me useful, so here I am. Use me." That Sunday, Pastor Jim announced the launch of a new ministry, Mothers in the Waiting, a group for women walking through infertility, miscarriage, and adoption journeys. When he said Hannah's name as co-leader, she looked at Mark in disbelief. He smiled, nodding. "I told you, he doesn't waste storms." After the service, a woman approached Hannah in tears. "I heard your story," she said, gripping her hand. "Do you really believe God still answers?" Hannah squeezed back gently. "I don't just believe it," she said. "I live in the proof of it every morning." Part 10. The Legacy. Time passes. Faith remains. And sometimes what God starts in your pain becomes someone else's miracle. 5 years had passed since the storm. The Brooks farmhouse looked different now. A little older, a little fuller. There were handprints on the porch rail from the time Hope decided paintbrushes were optional. A new oak tree grew in the yard where lightning had once split the old one. Its trunk was thin but strong, roots pushing deep into the same soil that had once been torn open. Dot Hannah stood at the window one Saturday morning, coffee in hand, watching Hope chase their golden retriever through the grass. The sun caught her daughter's hair, that same wild curl she'd had since birth, and something in Hannah's chest ached with gratitude too big for words. She whispered, "You are living proof that God still hears." Inside, the house buzzed with weekend rhythm, dishes clinking. The faint hum of the washing machine, worship music playing low through the speakers. Mark was fixing a loose kitchen cabinet. Hope was making mud cupcakes on the back step. It was the kind of simple morning Hannah once thought she'd never see. The doorbell rang. Dot. She wiped her hands and opened the door to find a young woman on the porch, nervous, holding a small folder. "Hi," the woman said. "I'm Lily. Clara told me to stop by. I'm part of the Mothers in the Waiting group." Hannah smiled. "Of course. Come in." They sat at the table, the same one where Hannah had once cried over unpaid bills and unanswered prayers. The air smelled faintly of coffee and cinnamon. Lily unfolded a piece of paper, a medical report. "It's been 3 years," she said quietly. 3 years of hoping and nothing. "I'm starting to think maybe I'm not supposed to be a mom." Hannah listened. Every word hit like an echo. She reached across the table and took Lily's hand. "I used to say the same thing," she said softly. "And then one day, God didn't give me what I asked for. He gave me what I needed. And it changed everything." Lily blinked back tears. "I don't even know how to pray anymore." "That's okay," Hannah said, squeezing her hand. "Sometimes silence is prayer too. God knows the words before you can speak them." After Lily left, Hannah sat for a while at the table. The folded report still sat there, forgotten. She looked down at the surface. The same wood grain that had once held her tears. The same space where she'd begged God for a miracle. Now, it held stories, laughter, coffee stains, coloring pages, and the fingerprints of a little girl who would never stop reminding her that faith grows roots. When you water it with trust. That Sunday, Mothers in the Waiting held its 2-year anniversary meeting. The small church hall was packed, women of every age. Some with babies in their arms, others still waiting. Some just finding the courage to hope again. Hannah stood at the front, microphone trembling slightly in her hand. She took a breath and began. "I used to think faith was about getting the miracle you prayed for," she said. "But faith isn't just believing for a miracle. It's believing that God is still good when you don't get it, and that He's still writing when you think the story's over." A few women nodded through tears. One whispered, "Amen." Hannah smiled. "When I prayed for a child, I thought that was the ending I wanted. But I didn't realize it was the beginning of 100 other stories, yours included." She paused, eyes glistening. Every tear, every waiting season, every sleepless night, He saw it all. And He's not done. Not with you. Not with any of us. After the meeting, Hannah stepped outside. The evening sun bathed the church in gold. The sound of laughter spilled from the doorway. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "You really didn't waste a single thing, did you?" A breeze moved through the trees, soft like a nod. That night, she tucked Hope into bed. "Mommy," Hope asked sleepily, "will God always listen when I talk to him?" Hannah brushed a curl from her forehead. "Always, sweetheart. Even when you whisper. Even when you can't find words at all." Hope yawned. "That's good, 'cause I talk a lot." Hannah laughed, kissing her forehead. "Then he'll never be lonely." Later, in the quiet, Hannah wrote one final journal entry. "It's been years since the storm. The house has changed. I've changed. But the same God who met me in silence still meets me now, in laughter, in work, in community, in hope. I used to pray for a miracle. Now I pray to be one." She closed the journal and slipped it into the drawer beside her bed. The candle flickered once, then steadied. Small, faithful, unwavering. Outside, the wind whispered through the new oak tree, and Hannah smiled. "You're still here," she said softly. "And so am I."